All right. So one of the problems we're going to have with this course, and it's really a problem for almost any humanities course that you ever take, especially survey ones, is how do you figure out what to include and what not to include? I mean, think about most of you have taken the humanistic traditions courses, Hum 1 and Hum 2. And, you remember that the first one covers, like, from the beginning of time in every civilization in humanity up until 1500. Well, 14 weeks, how are you going to do that, right? It's just ridiculous. And so, obviously, many, many choices have to be made in any course of this sort. No less so for a course in African humanities. I mean, Africa's a big place, right? And it's got lots of history to it. There's a lot of art, there's a lot of architecture, there's a lot of music, all of those sorts of things. And what I want to avoid in this class is just giving example after example of humanities artifacts that, after a while you just feel like it's just piling up and what's the storyline in all of this. And so, I think we need a narrative of some sort. And we could do this in a number of different ways. But it's worth noting a couple of ways that probably won't work. I mean, we probably can't do this very easily based on either time or place. I mean, think about it. We could try and do something chronological, looking at Africa over history, but, it's a lot of chronology. We could look at, we could go from one country to the next. We could just do a survey of all the different countries and the things that they do, but that just feels like a tourist a sort of trip of some sort. And neither of those are going to give you very much of a sense of what matters to people in Africa. And so instead I want to focus on a concept, and I guess more specifically a kind of narrative. The concept I want to focus on is creativity. Specifically, I want us to ask throughout this course what it means to be creative in the place that you find yourself. Okay, and obviously that's a question that is relevant to anyone. I mean, it's relevant to wherever you are. But I think Africa is a great example of, or a great place to think about that question. For most of us, it's a relatively unknown place. For better or worse, that's the reality of it. And so I think it's a place that can be discovered very nicely. People have often thought about Africa, unfortunately, as a kind of derivative place. In other words, a place where everything that is good came from somewhere else. This is often the way people think about African philosophy. Well, it's all really just European philosophy, just got transported in. Let me say right up front, I think that's a misconception, right? That's not where we're going to start this course. That's not what we're going to do with it. We're going to spend a lot of time looking at what Africans themselves have done across the continent that I think is really amazing and unique and contributed to world culture. Creativity also has a particularly significant sense in Africa because there's a stereotype about Africa that somehow the humanities are stuck in the past. I mean, whenever you see something about Africa, you often see something about village life. Think about the images that you're familiar with. You see village life, traditional garb, exotic animals. Think of any Disney film you care to mention. It's always about something that's happening in some, seemingly primitive place, and primitive arts and all of those sorts of things. Those stories, the stories that would probably be told, or we would think of as connected with this, would be proverbs, traditional folk tales, things of that nature. The music would be played on traditional instruments, probably involving a lot of strings and drums. Those are stereotypes, and it does not easily match up to the current contemporary reality in Africa. In fact, many of these traditional arts are kept alive in Africa precisely because that's what tourists expect. That's what people from the outside expect to find there, and so it sells. But there's a lot of great creative energy on the continent, and it's not just devoted to replicating past art forms. It's really about newness and innovation as well. And that's the Africa I want to look at. We're going to continually ask what it means to be creative and what examples we can find of creativity. I want us to learn about Africa, to learn about the many forms of expression and thought that there are there. I also wanted to reflect on who we are. I mean, any humanities course should always turn us back on ourselves and ask, who am I in relation to this material? What were my preconceptions about this place, and how do they need to change? Where can I look to, get a really good understanding of what's going on in Africa now? And so that's what we're going to work on here.